the lines that are created after the initial mark, and that relationship is something that is what's that term, like when something is based off of itself, self-referential. Yeah. And so yeah, and so there was that stage, and I also came to a stage where I realized that I could take any form, any shape, any form. It could be a box, it could be a circle, it could be a square, anything, and I can I can first bolden the lines to create like a solid environment, and then I could split that plane of field an infinite number of ways, creating like an infinite number of like potential aesthetics or whatever.
Have you thought about it that you are talking about infinity when you draw? Because there are spaces of some of the pieces that I've seen that aren't joined next to each other necessarily. But if you spend too much time defining it, you lose you limit it. Maybe that's the word. You limit it because you want to define it. Maybe it's undefinable because it is the infinite. That what you do for that moment is only part of the whole. I don't know. Maybe I'm just being my idealistic self.
Well, it's interesting. It's not interesting. It's like, duh, you bring up infinity, because that was like the main term, the main like thing that was a mantra, or like something that was repeatedly realized, is that not only could I attempt to like articulate infinity or give a perception of infinity. I mean, I can't have infinity, but I can give a perception of it. Oh man, I could. Wow, that's like dying. Not only did I realize that I could capture the perception of it, in 2 dimensions, I also realized that infinity stretches, even if only in the mind, into space, if you will it to. Me doing this, I realized that this gesture extends into infinity, to the universe and space and time. I just feel that, and that's one reason why I'm so drawn to capoeira, maybe, is because I realize that doing capoeira and using the body in that way, sometimes you're extending your being into infinity, but a lot of times it's like you're creating like a pressurized whirlwind or a twister in space or something, because we are moving like 360 degrees in a circle, going around each other, over and under each other.
Such lessons.
Yeah. What else? And then I realized that there came a point where I realized I could take any form. So at first it was all abstract, and then I realized that I could impose these ideas upon like recognizable forms, like recognizable figures or gestures, like a gesture of a lion, or a gesture of a bird, or a gesture of a human, or a gesture of a ladder, or a gesture of a symbol, and I can take that and then sort of apply these concepts that I learned through just working, and derive something like different, or something I've never done before. And what it does is it creates this like repetitive it's just, my mind just gets blown every time I do a piece, So when I figured that out, that I could do recognizable forms, I started drawing like a lot of faces, just faces out of my mind, faces I've kind of like drawn for a while. And, I draw these faces just because like they just come out of me. And so what I would do, I would go out a lot, and every time I go out, I'd carry a stack of papers with me, and the papers are like It's interesting. You're gonna hear the story. They're gonna hear the story. Anyways, the papers were like little 6x8 or like 7x5 sheets of paper, and actually like there's an installation here that year, and they had crayons in it and desks for, I guess, for people to write things on the paper, but there's just a shit ton of paper. So I went in there, I was like, oh, this is paper, and I grabbed a bunch of it, and I took like this much of it with me. And so I carried those with me everywhere, and then wherever I went, I would do these little drawings, just experimenting, because I was infatuated with like just what I was doing or whatever. I was learning from it, and I was like sharing my space in this creative way with people, you know, like I wasn't writing them off or ignoring them. I was interacting with them while making art. And after I drew the piece, whoever I was usually talking to or sitting around, I would just give it to them. So I must have given away about 100 of these undocumented drawings. And you'll probably meet some people who have one or two or three of them. What's next with this?
Well, I don't know, but it seems like there's no such thing as an animate, an animate object versus an animate object, because whenever I look at what is considered a finished piece for you, it seems alive. But maybe that's just me. I don't know. I've got a great imagination. But thank you, JahJah, for this interview.